Hi there. Today we have a question from ThoryX regarding our FreezerBurn build and how we tackle reflect content. We also have announced 2.6 changes coming soon, with a possible change in how we choose our ascendancies. If in fact Pendulum gets the huge area nerf that is intended, we might not be choosing it anymore. So to test this, we have two different characters, both about 87, with identical skill points, but different ascendancies that we're going to take into an elemental reflect map with the hopes of testing how we deal with reflect and which ascendancy route is going to be better for us in 2.6. Right then, let's load up the map and see how we do. It's also worth noting here that we are going to be going into reflect content, so we want to press X, switching over to our Rise of the Phoenix, and also using a worse wand than typically. This will lower our damage significantly. This character is running Shaper of Desolation and Beacon of Ruin, so we'll see how that prolif acts with the reflect content. Summon your golems, and if you want to use a stone golem here, that's totally acceptable. I'm going to stick with the normal ones just to test it out. Right, so we don't really need to do anything else much special. Purity would be nice. We got to put that on, because it's reflect content. Kapow. So we take really not a lot of damage. This is a 13% elemental damage reflection map. We'd expect to see a little bit more reflect damage incoming on higher level maps. So when we start getting to, say, 15 and 17% elemental reflect damage, it gets a lot worse. But you'll see there Mind Over Matter helps us with a lot of the reflect amount. We just take it slow, don't go too crazy, and you should be okay. Now again, our actual fire resistance here is all the way up to 86. If we had a higher level Purity of Fire, which would be 20, level 20, our reflect would be at 1% additional. It's just something to help us. Not required, but you can also have your Ruby Flask available. If you think you've shot your wave of Arctic Breath into a huge pack and there's no hope for you and you're going to die, press that Ruby Flask and you'll be fine. But this is a reflect map, and I am surviving it without using really all that many flasks. I'm trying to use none whatsoever, just to give you an idea of how the automatic cast when damage taken, Warlord's Mark, is helping us with our reflect incoming damage. On top of that, we also have Paragon of Calamity, which is giving us our 50% reduction, giving us extra damage every time that we reflect fire damage to us. In that regards, reflect maps really don't hurt us that much. Let's go ahead and switch over characters. I didn't bring a teleport scroll. Let's go find a teleport scroll, and then let's switch characters, and I'll show you what it's like on the other side. And I again realize this isn't really representative. Pack density, this is kind of low. It's only a tier 2. But I want you to see it. One of these guys will give me a teleport scroll, and we will switch characters here in just a moment. There's one. Cool. Moving on. First we're going to put all of our gear in the stash tab. Before I do that, let's resummon our golems. And this character, when I pressed X, the damage went down to 37k. Using my main setup, it's 44. That gives you kind of ballpark estimate of where our damage actually is with this gear and this character build. Okay, just a moment. I'm only going to bring the Ruby Flask just in case. We shouldn't need anything else. Oh yes, this next character can not cast elemental status elements, so we can switch out elemental focus for testing if we want. This character technically is 3 levels higher, but we're not going to look at that because we actually have 3 unallocated skill points, so they're the same. Very, very little difference in base stats. But instead of going for Shaper of Desolation and Beacon of Ruin, this time we're taking Pendulum and Mastermind, giving us a little bit more damage and a little bit more area of effect, on top of some extra penetration. So we should have some difficulties with some of what we want to get done. Astromendus lets us put on the rest of the gear, and from here it's just hop back in the map and see what trouble we get into. The 1 flask, summon our golems, turn on Purity, And then with elemental focus, if we're not running Shaper, we don't really need to worry about casting element effects to enemies. So we can swap out Control Destruction if we want to make a little bit more damage. So 35 is going to go up to, what, 37? Oh, 32. 43 versus 48. I'll figure that out later, but let's go take a look. So we only have the one flask. I won't use it initially. Let's go ahead and shoot some packs and see. That's okay. Let's get a nice big size pack somewhere. We'll find one. Maybe over here. So again, if you watch my flask, you'll see I'm not really using it. And we are in a reflect map. We are doing about 32k damage. If we drop this, our Orb of Storms, we do considerably more damage. We're up to 45 with Elemental Overload. It's critting for us, which is nice. But you'll see as we take more damage as we deal more damage. But remember that since we're using a little bit of mana reservation, our Clear Mind disables. So that helps lower it a little bit. So the big difference on these is Conflux versus Prolif. And I'm thinking, moving ahead, we're going to be using Shaper of Desolation and Beacon, rather than Pendulum and Mastermind. As much as I've really loved the penetration they give, and the extra damage and extra radius, with the changes to area damage, it's not going to make a lot of sense to run it anymore. Here's a nice size pack. I will use our Ruby Flask for that. Yeah, not really a lot of damage. In fact, if it started to get scary, we'd run out of mana, and it would kind of help us stay alive. There I did not use Ruby Flask, but I shot off into the distance, and you saw my health dive by quite a bit. They were too far away to cast our Curse Wind damage taken, so you do want to be a little bit careful. When you shoot off into the distance, the Arctic Breath blasts, they might go find a target that could reflect a little bit of damage. That would be spiky. Keep your fingers on your flasks and be ready in case that happens. Oh, here we go. Perfect. Nice scary pack. I had to use a flask, and we were fine. But yeah, Reflect is definitely doable. With our flask up, we have about 93% fire resistance. I don't think you'll have any problems leeching enough damage on top of that much fire resistance after Paragon of Calamity to really have any real problems with Reflect, even in hardcore. But you might find it be a little different as you get higher level maps, and you've run into packs that actually have Elemental Reflect on them. In your Elemental Reflect maps in general, those will be double. So Reflect maps can definitely be tackled with even high damage, but lowering it does help. So thanks for the question, ThoryX, and we'll see you next time.